He was used to commanding boardrooms, signing million-dollar deals, and getting respect wherever he went. But nothing prepared him for this moment. Sitting quietly in a small cafe, his mute daughter by his side, he expected just another afternoon snack. Yet within seconds, the entire room shifted. A black waitress walked up, then suddenly began signing fluently with his daughter. The millionaire froze. This wasn't on the menu, and it wasn't just a coincidence. What happened next would change how he saw people, privilege, and silence. Forever. It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday. Daniel, a self-made millionaire in his early 50s, had built an empire from nothing. But behind the wealth and prestige was a private pain. His only daughter, Emily, born mute. She was bright, curious, and full of life, yet her silence often made strangers uncomfortable. Daniel tried to shield her from the world's stares, hiding her away in private schools, luxury vacations, and chauffeur-driven cars. That afternoon, he decided to take her somewhere different. No fancy restaurants, no exclusive clubs, just a quiet cafe tucked in a modest neighborhood. Emily's eyes lit up as she scanned the menu, pointing with excitement. For Daniel, it was just a chance to bond, to show her the world beyond marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The cafe itself was unremarkable. Wooden tables, the smell of fresh coffee, the chatter of locals enjoying their meals. Daniel hardly noticed the young black waitress approaching. Her name tag read Maya. She smiled warmly, pen in hand, ready to take their order. Emily, as always, struggled to communicate. She tapped her father's arm, then pointed to the menu. Daniel sighed, preparing to translate her gestures as best as he could. It was the routine he had lived with for years, but what happened in the next few seconds was nothing short of astonishing. Maya didn't frown, didn't wait awkwardly, and didn't look to Daniel for answers. Instead, she set her notepad aside and began moving her hands, smoothly, fluently, unmistakably. She was signing. And Emily's eyes widened in disbelief before bursting into the brightest smile her father had ever seen. For Daniel, time stood still. For years, Daniel had been told that money could buy solutions. Therapists, private tutors, specialists, he had hired them all, but none could give Emily what she truly longed for: connection. And now, in this humble cafe, a young waitress had done more in a single gesture than all his wealth ever had. Emily's hands began to move rapidly, her excitement bubbling over. Maya responded just as quickly, their fingers dancing in a silent rhythm of words. Laughter escaped Emily's lips, not as sound, but as pure joy radiating through her expressions. She was understood. Daniel sat frozen, watching the exchange. Around them, a few patrons glanced over, curious but not intrusive. It was as if the cafe had turned into a small stage where something extraordinary was unfolding. He cleared his throat. "Excuse me," he said softly, almost embarrassed. "How do you know sign language?" Maya paused, offering him the same warm smile she had given Emily. "My younger brother was deaf," she explained. "I grew up speaking with my hands before I even learned to write my name." Her words struck Daniel deeper than he expected. Here was a woman who had likely faced hardships he couldn't imagine, yet she carried herself with ease, dignity, and an ability to connect without barriers. As the minutes passed, Emily and Maya continued signing. Emily told her favorite colors, the books she loved, even the silly jokes she saved for people who could understand. For once, Daniel didn't need to translate. He was simply an observer, watching his daughter blossom. Something inside him stirred, an uncomfortable mixture of pride and shame. Pride because Emily was shining. Shame because it took a stranger for him to see her in this light. All those years of keeping her sheltered, protected by walls of privilege, and yet here, in a place he had never considered important, Emily was more alive than he had ever seen. The food arrived, but Emily barely touched it. She was too busy chatting away in her own world. Maya didn't just serve their table, she gave Emily a voice. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. This was no random encounter. It felt like a mirror being held up to him, forcing him to confront the truth. He had built a life of wealth, but not of understanding. He had given Emily everything money could buy, but not what her heart needed most. For the first time in years, Daniel realized he wasn't the richest person in the room. The cafe grew quieter as Daniel sat there, torn between awe and regret. He had lived his entire life believing that wealth meant control, that if you could pay for something, you could solve it. But here, his daughter was glowing, not because of his millions, signed something but because quickly, of a stranger's her hands kindness. Moving with urgency. Maya laughed, nodding, and then turned to Daniel. "She's asking if we can be friends," Maya explained softly. Daniel's throat tightened. His daughter, who had struggled to make friends, who had sat silently through birthday parties and school events, was now reaching out without hesitation. He managed a nod. "Of course," he whispered. Tears pricked his eyes as he watched Emily lean forward, signing faster, as though she was making up for all the lost years of conversations she never got to have. Maya followed along effortlessly, patient and kind. Something broke open inside Daniel. For decades, he had seen Emily as fragile, someone who needed protection. But in this moment, she wasn't fragile. She was powerful. She was radiant. She had simply needed someone who spoke her language. The realization hit him like a storm. Money could buy silence, but it couldn't buy understanding. And all this time, he had been giving her the wrong kind of love. The other patrons in the cafe seemed to sense it too. There was a hush, an unspoken reverence, as though they were witnessing something sacred. A millionaire's wealth meant nothing here. What mattered was human connection. Daniel wiped his eyes, unashamed. He reached across the table, taking Emily's small hand in his. She squeezed back, her eyes sparkling, before turning again to Maya. In that instant, Daniel knew his life would never be the same. When Daniel and Emily finally left the cafe, the world outside seemed different. The cars still rushed by, the city noise still echoed, but for him, something had shifted forever. Emily clutched his hand tightly, her face glowing with the kind of happiness money could never buy. That evening, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Maya. A waitress, living a life likely full of struggles, had given his daughter the greatest gift: understanding. He realized it wasn't about charity or pity. It was about presence, about meeting someone exactly where they are. The next week, Daniel made a decision that surprised even himself. He hired a private sign language teacher for both Emily and for him. No more translators, no more walls. If his daughter's world was in her hands, then he would learn to speak with his hands too. Soon, their home echoed with a new kind of conversation. Emily taught him jokes, shared secrets, and laughed in ways he had never seen before. Every gesture, every sign became a bridge between them. For the first time, Daniel felt like a real father, not just a provider, but a companion. Months later, he returned to that same cafe. Maya was still working there. This time, Daniel didn't just thank her. He offered her a position in a foundation he had created, dedicated to teaching sign language in schools and workplaces. She accepted, humbled but proud. Emily gained not only a friend, but a community. And Daniel? He discovered that true wealth wasn't counted in dollars, but in moments of connection, in voices that didn't need sound to be heard.